I wanted to call about the sale of the refinery and, my concerns. And, while we fully support the fact that government wanted to protect the jobs in the area, and that is very important, and hopefully the new operator will stay and secure those jobs long into the future. But what if they don't? And that's our concern. Government had taken on full responsibility for any environmental liability and costs on that site without setting a benchmark or a ceiling on the maximum amount that government would be responsible for. And we have no idea what the environmental liability is on that site right now. It'll take a full year to carry out an environmental assessment.
What a thing to imagine if somebody like the current owners before the sale said, now we need to wrap this up, but we're going to be on the hook for all of this environmental damage, so we need to find a way out of this, so we'll get somebody else to buy the place on the premise that they no longer have responsibility, and therefore once they've bought it without obligation to continue for a certain period of time, it really gets off the hook. That would be a devious plan. Nobody's saying that's reality, but imagine. It's possible. Perhaps it's happened in the past somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, that is a concern for sure. You look at, the Abitibi site, and government took that over and preached in the House that the polluter pays. If there's any environmental damage out there, Abitibi will be responsible. At the end of the day, government were responsible, and that was a pretty hefty bill for environmental liability out there. So, while government allowed harvest operations to walk away with all of the revenue from the sale of the refinery, they've taken full responsibility for any environmental costs. And that's a blank check. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that could add up to an oil refinery. It could be more significant than most people would even guess. But in any case, we're hoping that the sale will mean that the jobs continue, the activity continues, and that it's well down the road before the whatever environmental situation is there. You assume, too, that they have a good read or a very clear understanding of what the environmental situation is there on site. I can imagine that there are some that really it's beyond anybody's ability to cover all the costs. I mean, it's not on the scale of the oil sands or anything like that out west, but it can be significant.
It can be significant. So, I'm looking for, and our party is looking for all regular environmental monitoring reports on that site since the last sale. We're going to ask government to provide those. There should be regular environmental monitoring done of that site. If there hasn't been, then certainly government has signed away, or accepted, signed on for all environmental liability without having any idea what's there.
Well, the minister said on the program last week that this is the first thing that has to be done. They will do a very thorough, detailed environmental assessment to know exactly what the situation is, and that way determine what new responsibility goes to the company, because anything from the sale date forward is on their tab. So we should know exactly what we're looking at for ourselves and why we wouldn't be able to get that information. I can't imagine, but presumably that will be available when that assessment is completed.
Absolutely. Well, that assessment will take about a year, but what I'm asking for now is the regular environmental monitoring of that site since the last sale of the site. So hopefully government has done regular environmental monitoring. But to talk about doing an environmental assessment at this stage without having any idea of what environmental liabilities government has taken on is the same thing as opening the barn doors, letting the horse out, and then closing the barn doors, hoping that it's safely inside. It's ridiculous.
What provincial or federal legislation is there to force governments? I mean, I'm just wondering if it's a situation where they say, look, a site like this, you never really fully, mitigate the damage. You can only do so much, and therefore, whatever's there now, we're going to do the same thing regardless. We're just going to sort of clean it up as much as is affordable. We're going to close it down. We're going to fence it off, and it's going to remain there forevermore. Are there provincial and federal regulations that say that that's not good enough, that something has to be done, and there are time constraints on when it can be finished by?
Well, I'm not sure there's time constraints, but government, both provincially and federally, have set a precedent. You look at, for example, the old American base sites throughout this province. Mm-hmm. The provincial and federal governments have put funding towards cleaning up those sites over the years. Now, they've been vacant, some of them abandoned, some of them are still occupied, but no longer occupied by the Americans. Mm-hmm. And government is still putting money into the cleanup of those sites. Mm-hmm. So
but that could be on a whole different scale, or at least Come By Chance could be on a whole different scale, on one where they say, well, there's no way it can be fully, brought back. So there's only so much you can do, and we know what that's going to cost, so it doesn't really matter if we take on these responsibilities, because it's never going to be cleaned.
Well, you look at offshore oil companies, bonding is a common thing for offshore oil companies to operate. And they take out a bond to protect against environmental degradation. And, that should be a similar situation with an onshore company that's operating in the oil industry, whether it's a refinery or, if there's an oil discovery on land. A bond should be put in place to ensure that if there is environmental costs to clean the site once that company is left, that at least we've got some protection.
Right. All right. Well, I guess we should get at some point some indication of whether or not these ongoing assessments are available, or if the one that they're talking about doing that you say will take a year, whether that's going to be made public as soon as it's completed, because I can't imagine why it wouldn't be.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, sir. Thanks again.
Thank you, Pete.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.